Welcome to As the Dynasons Turn, where we chronicle the adventures of the Dynason family, a seemingly ordinary family from Iowa who decided, hey, you only live once, so let's move to Portugal. And now your hosts, Jason and Tracy Dynason.
All right.
Hi, welcome to another episode of As the Dynasons Turn, our 2-year episode, 2-year anniversary episode.
Well, I went back and listened to our 1-year anniversary episode because I didn't want to say the same thing. But I think it's very interesting because it was right after that 1-year episode that life kind of exploded for our kids. It got to be kind of touch and go. If Jackson was going to be able to pass 9th grade or not because of national exams. There was a lot of worry there. And it worked out well in the end. Just so you know, for other parents that might be watching this, that are going through this now, they make it sound like the national exam is the determining factor on if you get to move on to the next grade or not. It is, was it 1/3 or 1/4 of their grade? 1/4 or 1/3. It is not the entire thing. They make it sound like it's 2/3 or 3/4 of their grade. It is not. The rest of it is their schoolwork. Jackson did pass all of his exams. He is in the 10th grade now. Okay, Tyler is in 7th grade. But it was a lot then. I also know a year ago we were still debating on if we were going to try and extend visa or things or not, or if we were going to have to move back in summertime. So I took me back to that place. What about you?
Yeah, well, we're still here, so...
We are still here.
No, it's good. It's strange, like 2 years doesn't feel like 2 years, and yet it also feels like we've been here for 10 years.
It's interesting because it feels like it's been a minute and it feels like it's been forever at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that, we talked before about moving back and exploring possibilities, but that's off the table for me, at least. How about you?
I think I'm happy here.
Yeah.
Really.
At first there was kind of the question if we were going to be able to or not, but quite frankly, moving around the world, just like you do any big move, it takes a while for you to kind of find your stride. And so I think that we're happy, like we're good with where we are. So visa renewal will happen this summer. They're unraveling all of the AMA, CEF disaster. People have been getting their renewals. So hopefully by the time they get to us at the beginning of July, things will be on a normal, even keel. We shall see.
Mm-hmm.
But so reflect on your 2 years, Jason. Like what makes it different? Because last year we were still kind of wishy-washy. What kind of makes you feel at home? What's changed?
I don't know. I guess I feel like we've settled in. We have a routine. I think that sometimes I work too much still. So that sometimes it's like we just transplanted pieces of our lives from America to here. But I think that overall there's a quality of life. And it's always hard to talk about without sounding insulting or whatever to where we lived before. I think a lot of what we say about quality of life and such is more our own internal struggles. And I think it gets back to what I've said several times, that we needed a drastic change of kicking the ladder out from underneath us and being in a completely different situation than what we were in. And it wasn't something where it was just like take a day or a week off, or maybe we move to some other state or something. We needed a transcendental experience, I think. We needed...
Oh, the philosophies come out.
Well, maybe that's not the right word. We needed forced change.
Well, and there are things here that make that change much more feasible. And yes, so I started teaching English in the fall. I teach 10 and a half hours a week, or I did. Now I've picked up an individual, so it's 12 and a half hours a week. It's in Guimarães, so I'm gone every afternoon. And when that started, I really missed teaching and I missed the pieces of it. But I teach from 11-year-olds to, and then I have an adult, but my other classes are, 15-year-olds, 11 to 15. I've realized that anything under 14 is not my bag, which is something for me to learn, mainly because there's a lot more classroom management in different ways. So I'd say the classrooms here are like the US maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. So really just trying to, particularly when it comes to classroom management types of issues that I would see, it was things that I saw way long ago that I wasn't dealing with back in the States. And if anything, it gotten to the well beyond that point, and that there were a lot of other things to deal with. So that's been very nice. But at the same time, I think that there's a maturity level of content and interest. But I've always liked the more complex grammar things too. And so when you're 11 and 12 and we're working on the past simple and past continuous, it never gets beyond that. Whereas I like all of the crazy things that are going on in J4. So I think I found a good level of what I really enjoy. And that's nice. I don't know if I'll do it next year because our lives then in January, everything kind of exploded and our business has really taken off, and that's a good thing. And we've got multiple different projects, as you guys have seen. But for me, I think that starting teaching actually really solidified this was home for me, because I had my atelier community already in Guimarães. And now I've got a teaching community and a group of friends that I see on a daily basis, and I have contact, and all of that made a huge difference. And I think that it also, yes, it gave us routine, but it also forced us to make sure people were more independent, like the kids were more independent as a part of that, because you were working and I was gone, so nobody could pick them up. So public transportation has ensued, and Jack loves it. So it'll be interesting to see what he thinks it's been like after 2 years. But I do feel like we have a community and we have a routine, but there are pieces of every single day where I still marvel at the places I live. And it feels like home. It feels like home, but it also has got that kind of splendor of like, oh my gosh, I'm walking on a Roman road, or yes, this is a building. I work in a building that's been there since the 1500s, or, like things like that. You're just like, wow. And I love those pieces of it. I also really enjoy the mountains or hills of where we are. Hills, they're not really mountains for those of us from Colorado. They're just not that. They're what they call mountains. I really enjoy living in that type of foothill area a lot. And there are pieces of living in Portuguese culture that, like, it's a cafe culture, it's a conversation culture, it's a take your time culture. It's not try and like run from point A to point Z in 30 seconds flat, or get 25 zillion things done in a day. And you see somebody on the street, even if you're late for something, you're expected to stop and have a conversation. You can't just say hi. You have to stop and have the conversation and catch up and all of those things, and then you can move on. But it's not easy all of the time.
We need to go back to Oliveira, because it's just 5 minutes
I know.
that direction.
We haven't even been there since we moved.
And see, so Oliveira is where the 300 square foot stone house was that we lived in when we first moved here. And Lady the cow in the field next door.
Oh, yeah.
And Cesar and some of the people who I can't talk to them because they don't speak English, but we'd wave at each other. So
well, and I think that we probably could have more of a conversation now. We should go when the river beach opens up in the evening.
That's true.
Everybody goes down and has their beer and hangs out down there and has a bifana or something, and so we should do that. That would be great. A bifana, by the way, is like a roast beef sandwich with like a very saucy kind of sandwich. I don't know. It reminds me like a cross between a roast beef sandwich and like a birria taco, because it's got that type of au jus that's got to be in there on the bun. So that's a bifana. That's what everybody eats.
Okay. But I think that we also have found our direction a little more also, and
I would agree with that.
and what makes us happy and what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for growing the artistic side of life more and having more time to do that. And we know that the business is just doing amazing things, and we're working on all kinds of stuff for you all to kind of understand what the people that we have encountered and the place that we live. Because there's a lot of powerful stuff going on.
So Dynaston, I think some of you have seen this, but Dynaston Media now has the Portugal Chronicle that we have started, which is like an English language hub, that's what I call it, a platform for telling stories about Portugal. We have Mafalda, who's a wonderful Portuguese colleague of Tracy's.
She is, yeah.
Who's become a friend, and through that,
her partner.
her partner's going to do some video and editing work for us. So it's just feels like fate, because if you had not started teaching, you wouldn't have met her, and this business idea would have just stayed up in my head. I've had this idea for a long time. I started in the fall thinking about, because where my heart really is, and I know I have a lot of clients who listen to this, but this is the truth. My heart is not in preparing tax returns. I'm sorry, it really isn't.
We do it, and it's interesting.
It's interesting, and it's fine. But, audio work, broadcasting, that sort of thing is really where my heart is. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking about that. I've done soccer play-by-play before, and soccer is big here in any country other than America. Soccer is big. And so I thought, because 20 years ago when I worked in radio, I actually was the main play-by-play guy for the local access cable channel in Harlan.
That is true.
Actually, there were two. Both of the utility companies in the area had their own local access channels, and I did stuff for both. So I did football, basketball, a little bit of soccer. Volleyball was actually a big thing. I've done volleyball play-by-play. So I thought, let's do soccer. And La Liga is that's like the NFL in Portugal. And then I started thinking more about, broadcast rights would probably be just a little bit expensive for La Liga. So
we've actually also talked about what are ways we can go ahead and incorporate sports. And there's we have a league here in our own town for Maria de Fonte that's, very, very well respected and very, well known. And especially when it comes to basketball, they're a basketball really heavy program. But then Povo Lanoso also has its own, soccer team. So I think that it's a good idea. It's just getting those connections.
Well, and so there's still some sports things, some kind of like podcast or something with a Portuguese person talking about Portuguese sports is still in development, I guess. But then it kind of morphed. The idea did, and it became an idea of, let's do things in English for the English speakers here, the Americans and the Brits and so forth. But also, we talk to a lot of Portuguese people. You go to the doctor's office, the doctor will say, I speak English, but not very well. Or our favorite pharmacist in town.
Hey, Nelson.
Nelson is his name, and Nelson says, he watches Netflix in English. He seeks out American Netflix. A lot of people do in Portugal because they want to improve their English skills and especially learn the slang and how people really talk. Because a lot of them are professionals who know the textbook English, but they might not know all of the way that people really talk. So they watch American TV shows. So then the idea became, what if we do things in English that are produced in Portugal? So you could actually say you're watching something produced in Portugal. that gives you English language content. And that's where we are now. So Mafalda is actually going out and covering things that are happening and talking to interesting people. And we have so many other ideas, not just my sports podcast idea, but a lot of other ideas of things that we want to cover and things that we want to do with this.
Well, and I think that the other piece of it is we wanted things to be really authentic. And so we want to tell the storytelling. So I love stories, as many of you know. Jason is definitely a writer, director, broadcaster, and that's where his heart is. And so this gives us an opportunity to get to know our community in a deeper way and have purposeful conversations with the people we have connections with, but also to expand that network and expand our circle and tell you the stories of the people here, the people we know, and what life is like, really. And we didn't want it to be like a TikTok, 30-second Instagram type of thing. We wanted to give you something authentic. And so that's what we've been working on. And we always have the best of intentions, but it's not easy when there's two of us and we're working multiple jobs and getting this stuff done too. So I think that that's where we're growing. And that's what we want to do, is have a lot of those conversations and bring you more. And so I think that moving ideas, like we've gone through the whole burnout phase. We're now into our entrepreneurial feeling solidified and solid where we are. I miss pieces of the old of our house. Like I miss the patio in the backyard. I miss the neighbors. I don't miss anything really other than that. Because we needed the space. I'm curious to see what the boys have to say about that.
Should we go get them?
Yeah, so I think that we're gonna have each one of them. I think you should have the conversations with them.
Okay.
All right, so let me go and get Jackson. He's gonna get started with us.
Okay. All right, Jackson is with us, our 16-year-old, almost 17.
That's crazy.
Oh wow, you actually remembered.
Of course I remember.
He was there.
So what do you think about the 2-year anniversary?
I mean, it's been nice. I mean, school's been going great. I mean, it's been tough, but all in all, I think it's been going pretty well for most of us.
How is 10th grade in Portugal different from what like high school would have been like in the US?
Or
is it about the same?
It's much more like a university.
Some days you have really long classes, don't you?
Yeah.
Like 4 hours.
Yeah, I have really long classes most days.
And you go, it's like you go to work every day, right?
I do, yeah.
8 till 6 or 8:30 till 6:15.
Yep.
What about classes?
I mean, they're fun.
What are some of the things you study?
I study technological multimedia. So web design, media, all of those kind of things.
So you'll have to do internships at some point. Does that start this year or is that next year?
I'm pretty sure it's next year.
Okay. And how are your language skills?
They've been improving. I can now explain questions to people.
Well, you're farther along than me. Mom wants to know if this feels like home.
It's starting to, yeah. It definitely is starting to feel that way.
Are there things that you miss from back in Iowa, whether it's big things or little things like stuff we could get at Hy-Vee or Casey's or something? Or...
Yeah, certainly. But that's just par for the course when you make a big move like this.
It is. Do you want to move back?
Right now, no, not really.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, in the future, maybe. But right now, no.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's been 2 years, and I think that the interrogation is over, so we can get your brother.
Okay.
All right, so who are you?
I am Tyler. I am your youngest child.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So it's our 2-year anniversary. What do you think about being here 2 years?
I can't believe it's already been 2 years. It only feels like it's been like 1 year or something.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're in 7th grade, right?
Yeah.
And so how is 7th grade here different from what 7th grade would have been like in the US?
Well, they teach things with like a complexity of like 1 year ahead usually. Like I'm learning math that you would normally learn in the US in like 8th or 9th grade.
Wow. Big brain.
Yeah.
And so your daily schedule varies too, doesn't it?
Yeah, some days I'll get out shorter than I would in the US. Sometimes it's longer.
That's right. Some days you get out at what, 1:15?
Yeah, other days I get out at like 4:15, 5:25.
So that makes things a little different because in the US you always got out at the same time, and then you and your brother and I would go to Hy-Vee, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And we'd buy all kinds of stuff because I was a big softie. We could go to Continent, I suppose.
Yeah.
Continent is the grocery store, kind of like, that's probably the closest to Hy-Vee, isn't it?
Yeah, they have Hy-Vee like items. They have their own bakery. They have a bunch of goods. Of course, it's a grocery store.
That's true. All right, so what are your plans? Do you have any big plans? Have you thought about that? What you want to do as time goes on here in Portugal?
Well, I'd really like to sort of like find more passions I have, because right now I don't really have that many passions. Like I like to have a small variety of foods. Like I would like to have more foods, definitely. I would like to try some more things.
Okay, so you started taking trombone lessons, didn't you?
Yeah.
And the fire department has something to do with that, right?
Yeah, it's run by the voluntary firefighters.
And so eventually you'll be able to play in like the firefighter band or something, won't you?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be exciting. So this year you didn't get to march in the parade thing, but maybe in the future you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, 2 years.
Yeah. Already.
Does it feel like home?
Kinda. It kind of feels like home.
Would you want to move back?
Not right now, no. I feel like I'm still finding my footing here.
Yeah, me too. Anything else you think people should know?
If you're going to enroll your kids in school here, then make sure that they're going to understand the concepts well enough, definitely.
That is a very key thing.
Yeah.
All right. Tyler Dennison.
All right, so they've had their piece. They've said their stuff. I think it's funny because, I thoroughly expected them to want to move back. I appreciate that Tyler feels like he's still finding his footing. He is our ultra perfectionist child. I don't know where he would get any of that. And so he wants to make sure that he can do everything as well in Portuguese as he can in English. Jack's comment that school here is much more like going to college, I think is definitely true. He does have internships coming. They will be paid. And he's got a professional exam at the end, including on top of that, additional exams to get into college. That will happen in another year or two. So, I don't know. It's hard to believe.
It is.
So 2 years. What's the thing you feel like you've learned the most? Like the things that you think, you need to know. I like Tyler's advice of make sure your kids understand the concepts. Meaning, don't just throw them into school, Mom. But that's okay. What do you think?
I think it's do it, but I think some people maybe are a little naive about, and it's going to be harder than you think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We see people moving back after 6 months or a year, and I'd say like a year ago we were still considering it, truthfully. But we're not there anymore. We've worked through all of that kind of stuff. So it's harder than you think. You have to build a community. And so if you're working outside of the house, that's a lot easier. And then that leads towards having more people to interact with and making sure you have that, because you need a community. And becoming part of community within a small town in Portugal is not easy. So I think that that's why some people who move to smaller towns have issues. But then we have a very active group of, fellow immigrants in the Braga area, and we even have a growing community right here in our small town now.
Mm-hmm.
So of English speakers. So it's growing. Yeah. And
Canadians and British.
Yeah, and so that means that Jackson's got, and Tyler now knows them too, but Jackson's got people that he has classes with every day that are going through things about a year behind him that he can be there for. And I think that was really empowering for him. That's made a big difference in how we view our life and how he views life. That, and we're taking care of the things that I think we put off taking care of, as far as physical and mental health for all of us. And so I think that that's also been helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm happy.
Yeah, I think it was a good decision.
Yeah. The honeymoon period's over, but it still feels warm and fuzzy. That's the way I would describe it. When I feel like our place and I feel like where we are, and I feel like, I wish that everyone could come and see us and see it and be a part of it, because it's a good home. Come see us.
All right, join us again on another episode of As the Dinosaurs Turn.
You've been listening to As the Dinosaurs Turn, a podcast presented by Dinosaur Media Ventures. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and catch us again next time for another episode.